What you're about to see is a story told by Oleksandr. He's a Ukrainian soldier, and this is his testimony of what happened to him on Christmas night, 2023. My name is Oleksandr, and I have been a soldier for 11 months. I am currently in the east of my country. Last week was my first Christmas away from my family. Because of the situation at the zero line, I was not able to celebrate like I would before the war. Christmas Eve was spent under artillery and rocket fire. One of my comrades, Serhiy, was wounded in the groin and his legs by the shrapnel between 2100 and 2200. Serhiy is not someone I know very well, as we are usually at different positions. That day, he had come to our position to bring new batteries, trench candles, and other equipment. Before he could leave, he was wounded. We brought him into the dugout and tried to bandage his wounds. He asked for morphine or ketamine or anything to make the pain less, but we just had none to give him. At about 0100, the order came to evacuate him. We knew this order would come, and this was going to be very difficult. We were to carry him away on a cloth stretcher by hand at night, and we only had one night vision, so the person carrying him in the front was the only one able to see. We carried him through the trench and into the broken tree strip behind us leading west. This is dangerous because even at night, the drones can still see you and direct artillery or drop grenades if they are able. Something did see us, and we needed to hurry. Mortars began to throw at us, and we took shelter for a moment between two large logs laying on the ground. Serhiy was in between the logs, as were the rest of us, laying on our stomachs at 02 in the morning. In these few moments, I was terrified. This was one of my first combat evacuations, and I had seen enough videos on Telegram to be aware of what could happen. One of the hits was close enough for me to see, and the explosion lit up the trees around us for a moment. Every tree was cut by explosions or shrapnel halfway up, like a giant scythe had cut through them like it would wheat on a farm. I was terrified because each hit seemed to get closer and closer to us. Another one came so close, a piece of metal fell next to me and melted the snow around it. I could hear it sizzling. When the hit slowed down, we picked him up and carried him again. The tree strip was difficult for us because of the fallen trees, branches, and holes in the ground. Remember, we could not see. We moved very slowly, and this was exhausting, only made worse by Serhiy beginning to cry and ask us to go faster. Finally, we reached the evacuation point. After 10 or 15 minutes, the vehicle came to pick him up. He was loaded in, and one of the medics told us, "Thank you, and have a good Christmas." I had completely forgotten that today was Christmas, and it didn't feel like it at all. I wasn't at home with my family. I wasn't with my wife, or my children, or my mother. There was no hot meal, or gifts, or any decorations. What we got instead was a comrade wounded in the groin, his blood in our dugout on the floor. He was crying and asking for pain medication when we had none. We carried him 1.5 or 2 kilometers through the battlefield in the pitch dark. We began to walk as stealthily as we could back towards the position. I was thinking, if I survive this war, every year for Christmas after this will never feel like the ones before the war. We got close to the position, and again, the mortars began to hit us. This was around 06 in the morning. I entered the dugout and began to get very cold very quickly. Please remember, I had been moving and doing heavy exercises the entire night. My body was sweaty, and my clothing was damp. I sat inside the dugout, trying to keep warm, and shivered while the artillery and mortars seemed to hit randomly in front, behind, and to our sides. By this time of the night, I was too tired, too wet, too cold, and too depressed to care much about what happened to me. It was now Christmas morning, and the sun was coming up. I tried to think of things I was grateful for, to lift my own spirits. My father once said that the only thing that can motivate a man is that man himself. The artillery had stopped by now, and I walked into the trench walkway. I saw the frost on the branches and on the ground, on the frozen shovels and the boxes. Everything seemed different in the early morning light. The kind of light that turns everything slightly orange in your vision. Do you know what I'm speaking of? In this moment, I felt a big sense of gratitude to be alive. I felt gratitude that my wife and my family weren't here with me. I felt gratitude that the man we had evacuated was where he needed to be. I began to look at life differently in that moment. I stopped feeling sorry for myself, because it could be worse. This is a war. My corpse could be frozen in a tree line, frozen solid and unattended until spring. But I'm alive. My family is alive, and they're safe. This was for me both the best and the worst Christmas I have had. The experience of the night was horrible, but the lesson I learned about life gave me a different perspective I would not have gotten otherwise. If you found value in this, please consider checking out my Patreon and my Discord. I'm completely independent, and your support helps me continue to be able to do this. In addition, I'll soon be uploading a lot of my footage of my trip to Ukraine. As many of you know, I was just there for several weeks in October, and I'm just waiting for the final okay from a lot of the units who I was embedded with to give me permission to publish that footage. Every soldier has a story, and every story deserves to be told. Thanks for watching.